My name is Chandrika Lehman, and I'll be presenting on artificial intelligence, specifically speech recognition. We're all familiar with the phrase, "Hey Siri," right? Well, according to Core Creative, 60% of smartphone users have called on applications like Siri and used voice search at least once within the past 12 months. Siri is just one of the many applications that utilize speech recognition. What is speech recognition? Speech recognition is a subset of artificial intelligence. It uses natural language as an input to trigger a response. But we have to remember that speech recognition is an intelligence tool. So that pretty much means that it's constantly learning, and it learns through interpretations and interactions and the inputs that the people that create those programs continually put into it. The history of speech recognition began around 1952. This was when Bell Laboratories created a system called Audrey. Now, this was a very basic system and not really a recognition system, but it was able to differentiate between single digits that were spoken to it. Within the next 10 years, in 1962, IBM developed a device called the shoebox. Now, this was able to recognize and differentiate between 16 spoken words that were given to it. And then, through all the processes and all the technological advances, in 2011, Apple released Siri, which was the first voice assistance system that was created by a mainstream tech company. Speech recognition is used in many different ways throughout the world. You can use it to search info, create transcripts, even translate between different languages. I'm just going to elaborate on a few. It's used in training systems. So, for instance, in the Air Force, while they're training new pilots, they will create a simulation, and the trainee pilot, is talking to a system and directing things, as opposed to flying an aircraft and just so happened that he makes two land in the same place. Well, since he's using a simulation, no one gets hurt. Another application is with hands-free driving systems. You are talking to your car and telling it to call someone or switch the radio station or something, as opposed to taking your hands off the wheel and taking your focus away from the road, which heightens the risk of an accident. And so that's a good system to have as well. And here's just a synopsis of how it works. When you speak, your voice creates waves, and the analog to digital converter, which is also called the ADC, translate these waves into digital data that the computer can comprehend. After this is done, the data is divided into segments that are usually hundreds to thousands of a second small. Then these individual segments are translated into phonemes, and those phonemes are translated into the appropriate language. Now, phonemes are the smallest element in a language, so it just puts all of those together and comes up or tries to simulate whatever you're trying to say or what you're asking. Now, speech recognition has its pros and its cons. Some of the pros include enhanced speed when you're trying to do things, if you're on a time limit and you're trying to get things done. Another one would be spelling. If you're having trouble spelling a word, then you can just speak it into your phone or whatever device you have, and it'll give it to you. And another one is that it helps those with disabilities. And say there's someone who has been injured, or they're just born with a certain disability, they're not able to hear or see, then they can use that speech recognition system to dictate whatever they're trying to say or whatever they need to hear and read it or show it to someone else. Now, the cons would be that there may be some delays or limited vocabulary because this is an intelligence program. It is still, in a sense, learning. So there's constantly need for update and constantly need for new inputs as it grows and it is more widespread. So there leaves air for sometimes it may not have the correct answer you need, or it may just take a while to process whatever you're trying to get to. And here is just a chart of the different speech recognition systems that are in place today, just a few of them, not all of them, and the differences in their accuracy within their response to questions and their ability to pull up what the user or whoever is speaking you to it actually needs. And this is also from Core Creative. Now, speech recognition does pose some security risks because, for one, once the system is activated, there is no way to detect who is actually speaking. So that leaves their realm for children to speak to it, visitors, or someone who does not actually have access to that system. So it just leaves room for them to be unsupervised or getting access to data that they're not necessarily supposed to have. Another one would be that speech recognition systems are, in a sense, always listening. So they may accidentally pick up on something or misinterpret things that you're saying where you're not actually talking to it, but pick it up and like go and search that data in doing their regular process, but unintentionally. Another one would be having your data, others having access to your data. And there was a recent lawsuit against Amazon where they had employees listening in on Alexa recordings without people knowing that they weren't speaking to her or anything. They were just listening in on it, and they claimed that they were gathering data, but their consumers weren't really aware of what was going on. So that really posed a security risk. And just to recap, speech recognition is used for the understanding of a natural language that triggers a response. It first began to develop in 1952 with the Bell Laboratories and the Aubrey, and that just paved the way for every other technology that we have today. And speech recognition is in use in many different ways in the world, as we previously stated, from things like translation, sending text messages, and creating transcripts. And then, like we just discussed, there are some security risks, but you just have to see if those outweigh the benefits for you. And there are questions in my resources.